Today is Gaudete Sunday, and that is an imperative in Latin, the second person plural imperative, rejoice, an exhortation. And I always think, I don't know if you ever think this, but I think, how do you tell someone to rejoice? Be happy. But that's not really what Paul is doing, not in that sense. Paul is laying out, really, if you look at that reading again, what he's doing, he's laying out, actually, I think, a program for the spiritual life. So it's not just to rejoice, but, and I won't go through them all, but the three that really strike me are rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and in all circumstances give thanks. All three of these seem rather impossible to do, really. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and in all circumstances give thanks. And so I think it's worth pondering these to see what it is that Paul is suggesting to us. And as we think about what Paul is saying, we have to be realistic. Paul is also not a Pollyanna. He's not just saying, oh, don't worry, be happy, He's not sitting on the beach singing that song. There are real sufferings in our lives, real issues, things that make us sad, things that make us worry, We get hurt, etc., etc. Paul is not trying to ignore those things, but he realizes that Christians know something and have something that allow us to rise above them. And we could name whatever problems or issues or worries we have, We're sick, or people we love are sick, or we've lost our job, or we're grieving someone's death, or lighter things, but things that worry us, And what I suggest to you, and I suggest this to myself, this is really one that I'm struggling to learn myself. But I think Jesus would say to us, what are you worried about? And to back that up, I'll suggest a couple of passages from the Gospels to you. Remember this one, when the apostles are in the boat at night. This is during the day. They're in the boat, and a storm comes up. This is in Matthew's Gospel. And when he, Jesus, got into the boat, his disciples followed him. And behold, there arose a great storm on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waves. But he was asleep. And they went and woke him, saying, "Save us, Lord, we're perishing." And he said to them, not, "Okay, I'll take care of it. Oh, I'm sorry." No. He said to them, "Why are you afraid, O men of little faith?" Then he rose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. Or later in Matthew, so they're in the boat at night, they see Jesus walking on the water to them, that frightens them, and Jesus says, relax, it's just I. And Peter said, "If it's you, tell me to come to you." And so Jesus said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, not, "Hey, you did pretty well there. 3 steps. That's more than anybody else has gotten so far on the water, No. Jesus reached out his hand and caught him, saying, "O man of little faith, why did you doubt?" And I find it very humorous. Why did I doubt? Well, I'm standing on water for one thing, God, Or here's Paul and Silas. This is later in the Acts of the Apostles. Paul and Silas are, Paul had they were around, this woman around them had a spirit, used to make prophecies, and people made money off of her. Paul got aggravated at this spirit keep prophesying, so he exorcised her. He sent the spirit out of her. Well, that ticked everybody off, right? So the crowd joined in attacking them, and the magistrates tore the garments off them and gave orders to beat them with rods. When they had inflicted many blows upon them, they threw them into prison, charging the jailer to keep them safely. He put them into the inner prison and fastened their feet in the stocks. Here's Paul and Silas, stripped naked in front of the crowd, beaten with rods, thrown into the inner prison. I was just reading about that prison. It's more of a kind of a hole in the ground. They're underground. No light, no water, no bathroom facilities, no food. Chained to the wall. And what do? But about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. So Paul, this is not Pollyanna. Paul understands troubles, right? But he knows something. He knows that whatever is going on, we always have reason to rejoice. We always have reason to give thanks. And doing so helps us. Praying always. And I know we can name, as I said, many things. Personal things going wrong, or COVID, or the reaction to COVID, or what's going on in the church, or the election, or the world, or whatever, But now is not the time for worry or fear or anger or complaining or anxiety. Now is the time for faith. Think about it. We light the candles on our Advent wreath, and the more candles we light, the brighter it gets. Remember, Jesus is Emmanuel, which means God is with us. He's always with us. And we might think, and we might want, especially in our culture, this day and age, Jesus to be, it always seems like we're supposed to present this very understanding and gentle and sweet Jesus, But every time Jesus talks, I could give you more examples. He's always saying, little faith, why are you doubting? Why are you afraid? Why are you worried? So why wouldn't he say that to us as well? Now is not the time for sadness. Now's the time to rejoice. Jesus has come and is coming again. Now is not the time for complaining or anger. Now is the time to give thanks. In all circumstances, give thanks, Paul says. God showers us constantly with his gifts and graces, But how do we do this? How do we rejoice in the midst of suffering? How do we give thanks in all circumstances? I think part of it, the way it makes it possible, is if we do the third thing Paul says, pray without ceasing. And it doesn't mean we sit in church all day with our eyes closed and our hands folded. It means we turn to God throughout the day, constantly. We make God a regular, constant part of our day, We give everything over to him who cares for us. When we're afraid, we tell him that we trust him. We keep telling him that until it's true. When we're happy, we tell him. We thank him. When we're worried about something, we turn it over to him. Father Roy, my friend up in Michigan, it's a little aggravating, but he's always saying, that's Jesus' problem. So I'm telling him what I'm worried about here. He says, that's Jesus' church. Let him fix it. And I really would I call him and I think, I was really calling you for sympathy. Our stewardship program is not progressing very quickly. That's Jesus' problem. Tell him to get the money for you. Or this and that. And I'm glad he says it, but it's aggravating at first. But later I realize that's what I need to hear. It's Jesus' church, Jesus' parish. These are your Jesus people, And so you've heard me say, if you have time to worry, you have time to pray. So if you have a lot to worry about, be thankful because you have a lot to pray about then, When we have decisions to make, we turn to him for guidance and ask him for guidance. When we're presented with beauty, we stop and enjoy it and give him praise. The other day, somebody said to me, did you see the skies? This time of year, the sky in the morning and the evening is just gorgeous, To stop and thank him for the beauty of his creation. We land a new client, thank him. If we get a new job, thank him. The constantly we turn ourselves, the more and more we do that till it's second nature, we realize that Jesus is greater than any suffering or difficulty we can ever face in this world. And so, if you want a program of how to go about your spiritual life, here's a good one. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and in all circumstances, give thanks.
I have a couple announcements, but I forgot to say this in my homily. At the end, I wanted to say this. If you remember Paul and Silas in the prison, praying and singing. Let me read this. Let me add the last bit of it. I left it off on purpose, but I meant to go back to it. But about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. Not only if we could do this would it be good for us, but imagine if the world would look at us and see us going through the same things that they are. But we're rejoicing, we're giving thanks, we're giving praise to God, we're constantly praying with him, to him. What would that effect would that have on the world if they saw that?